Where are you from? Let me know in the comments.
Mexican DNA isn't just diverse, it's one of the strangest genetic stories on Earth. From ancient civilizations hidden deep in mountain valleys to modern descendants living around the world, Mexican DNA holds secrets that scientists are only beginning to understand. It's a genetic puzzle filled with rare markers, unexplained mutations, and deep-time origins. Why do some Mexican regions show genes that barely exist anywhere else? How is it that people from the same country can be genetically closer to distant populations than to each other? And what do these ancient genetic codes say about who Mexicans really are? This isn't just ancestry. It's a living, breathing mystery written in blood, and the answers might just change what we think we know about the new world. Before we start, I'm on a road to get 10,000 subscribers as a small channel. If you want to help me, please subscribe. Across Mexico, DNA doesn't just change from north to south, it shifts dramatically from one valley to the next. This country is home to over 60 indigenous languages, and with each linguistic boundary comes a genetic one. Some of the most genetically distinct populations in the Americas live just hours apart, separated not by politics but by mountains, rivers, and centuries of tradition. In Oaxaca alone, geneticists have identified dozens of microgroups, each with their own lineage patterns that trace back thousands of years. Unlike Europe or Asia, where migration blurred borders, Mexico preserved its diversity like a mosaic. The Sierra Madre Mountains acted like walls, protecting ancient DNA from being diluted. In the jungles of Chiapas, highlands of Guerrero, and deserts of Sonora, the DNA of indigenous peoples tells stories of adaptation, isolation, and survival. It's not just diversity, it's fragmentation on a genetic level, and that's what makes it so strange. Some parts of Mexican DNA contain haplogroups so rare they're like living fossils. Y chromosome markers such as Q102A101, nearly absent in much of the world, appear strongly in indigenous populations of Mexico, especially among the Nahua, Otomi, and Zapotec people. This Y DNA lineage likely arrived with the first humans to cross the Bering Land Bridge over 15,000 years ago. What's unusual is how little it changed. In many modern populations, ancient DNA gets reshuffled, absorbed, or replaced. But in Mexico, it persisted untouched. The mitochondrial DNA story is just as weird. You find maternal haplogroups like A2D, C1c, and D1f, clusters that are either hyperlocal or mysteriously shared with remote Andean communities. Scientists call them genetic relics, a term usually reserved for species, not people. These rare markers survived because of deep-rooted communities and limited outside interference. They offer a window into the original genome of the Americas. And sometimes they don't behave as expected, appearing in unexpected locations or combining with Eurasian markers in ways that confuse ancestry tests. For people with Mexican roots, your DNA might be a museum of ancient genes, some of which haven't been fully classified yet. That's not just rare, that's deeply strange and absolutely fascinating. When the Spanish arrived in the early 1500s, they brought with them a genetic wave, European Y DNA, African mitochondrial lines, and even traces of Southeast Asian ancestry through the Manila galleons. But what makes Mexican DNA so strange isn't just the mixing, it's how much of the indigenous genetic code refused to be erased. In many rural areas, especially in southern Mexico, genetic studies show surprisingly low levels of European ancestry. Entire towns in Oaxaca or Chiapas still carry DNA that is overwhelmingly native, with barely a genetic footprint from colonizers. Even stranger, some communities have high African genetic markers but virtually no European ones, reflecting complex histories of settlement and displacement that don't match simple textbook narratives. And then there are outliers. Places where Asian DNA appears, likely from centuries-old Filipino sailors and Chinese migrants. It's not just blending, it's blending unevenly. Like a river that flows backward in places, Mexican DNA shows a mix that's ancient at the core, with colonial layers that sometimes sit on top, sometimes sink deep, and sometimes vanish entirely. No other country in the Americas has such a complex, layered, and unpredictable genetic profile. It's not just mixed, it's mismatched, and that's what makes it so oddly compelling. Mexican DNA doesn't just hold ancient roots, it shows signs of incredible adaptation. One of the most curious patterns is the genetic response to high altitudes in indigenous communities of central and southern Mexico. People from mountainous areas have variants in their genome that help them process oxygen more efficiently. similar to those found in Tibetan or Andean populations, but that's not all. Geneticists have also discovered adaptations related to metabolism, specifically in how certain indigenous groups process sugars and fats. This may explain why type 2 diabetes and obesity hit some Mexican communities harder than others. The body's metabolic wiring was built for survival during food scarcity and not modern diets. Another strange quirk lies in the immune system. Some regions show rare gene clusters that offer protection against ancient tropical diseases, while others show autoimmune patterns that confuse modern doctors. It's as if Mexican DNA remembers every climate, every famine, and every parasite, and etched that memory into its code. Some of these traits are helpful, others in today's world can be risky, but they all point to one thing: an incredibly responsive and unusual genome. One that didn't just survive the New World, but was shaped by it in ways science is only beginning to decode. If you zoom in on a map of Mexico's genetics, you won't see national borders, you'll see microzones. These are pockets of DNA so specific to certain towns, valleys, or linguistic groups that scientists can often tell where someone's ancestors lived just by analyzing a few genes. Oaxaca alone is a textbook case. With dozens of indigenous groups like the Mixtec, Zapotec, and Triqui, the region is genetically more diverse than many entire countries. What makes it even stranger is how close these groups live to one another, sometimes just miles apart, yet show profound differences in their DNA. This isn't just diversity, it's genetic specialization. Language, isolation, and geography combine to form microscopic genetic regions, each with its own evolutionary path. It's like Mexico wasn't shaped by a single history, but by hundreds of parallel ones running side by side, and those histories are written not just in books but in chromosomes. Mexican DNA didn't stay in Mexico, it traveled, and when it did, it carried its genetic oddities with it. In the United States, particularly in California, Texas, and the Southwest, researchers studying Hispanic and Latino populations often stumble on rare genetic markers, traces of ancient indigenous haplogroups that survive migration, urbanization, and intermarriage. What's strange is how these traits persist, sometimes even intensify in diaspora communities. In Mexican-American populations, unique combinations of native, European, and African DNA can be found that don't match any single region in Mexico, but reflect historical migrations, labor routes, and settlement patterns. Even in Canada, Spain, and parts of South America, descendants of Mexican families carry telltale signatures, rare alleles, metabolic quirks, or Y-DNA markers that act like a calling card. It's like the DNA remembers where it came from, echoing ancient stories in modern bodies, and for many, that DNA is the only surviving link to a heritage deeper than any document could reveal. Even with all we know, Mexican DNA still holds secrets that science hasn't cracked. In remote indigenous communities, some with minimal outside contact, researchers have found entire gene segments that don't match any known global database. These could be previously unclassified mutations, ancient lineages not yet mapped, or even markers from populations that disappeared long before recorded history. Genomic studies in Mexico often return results labeled unassigned or unknown, not because of error, but because the DNA is genuinely different. That's why Mexico is now a frontier for cutting-edge genetic research. New projects are working with indigenous leaders to ethically sequence and preserve these genetic records, unlocking medical insights and rewriting parts of human history. But even with modern tools, some sequences remain strange, anomalies that defy expectations. It's like trying to read a forgotten language written in blood. Mexican DNA doesn't just tell a story, it's a mystery still unfolding in the labs of today. I'm on a road to get 10,000 subscribers as a small channel. If you want to help me, please subscribe. Mexican DNA is more than ancestry. It's a living archive of ancient migrations, rare genes, and bold adaptations. It's not just diverse, it's one of the strangest stories ever written in human code.